welcome back, guys. So, okay. Here's my videos. Okay, so here's the update of stuff. You guys need to tell me for the Spider-Man SAO. I am going to do What If Deku Was Cheated. Oh my god, I spelled that wrong. I'm gonna do What If Deku Was Cheated on part 5 probably tomorrow. Maybe, I don't know for sure. Hockey, I probably will. Titan Shifter, maybe in today's Zombie Apocalypse, probably do it tomorrow also. I'm thinking of uploading tomorrow because my winter break has started. But if you know who this man is, you know who he is. Thank you to all my One Piece fans out there. Welcome back to the show. Anyways, let's get over with it. This is gonna be What If Deku Was Trained by Zoro. Or Zoro. I love saying his name, it's so fun. Anyways, we're gonna start off in the very beginning. Inko met Hisashi. They got married, they had a child. Because Hisashi gave her the D. Yep. Anyways, when Izuku was born, Hisashi didn't really care about the child. He left. He didn't even come to see his child. He never knows what his son looked like at all. And Inko's like all mad about it. She says, that darn man just left me with him. Right? She's mad about it. But she's like, I shall protect this child. He is mine. Right? And pretty much, she keeps him for all of his life. All of his life until 4 years old. Bakugo, always bullied him because he got his quirk before him. But the day that they went, the quirk doctor said he had no quirk. Inko was furious that her son had no quirk. So, she abandoned him. She didn't want anything to do with him. Nothing. She left him in the woods, and he was crying for dear God's sakes. And he met a guy with green hair. He didn't know who this guy was, but just met this random guy with green hair. He was confused, but he sees him using 3 swords. He goes up to him, he says, hi, and he's like, kid, why are you here? This is not a place for little children. He's like, yes, but my mother left me. And the man with the green hair was confused. He said, why? And then he said, because I have no quirk. And when the guys heard this, he's like, oh, I see. Well, I guess you could stay with me for now. He says, thank you, sir. He says, yeah, sure, whatever. He said, yeah, sure, good. Right, and Deku hugs him. Zoro, or this green-haired guy, is all confused. He's like, okay, kid, that's enough. I barely know. He's like, yeah, but still. Right, and he's like, whatever, kid. Right, and during that situation, a grizzly bear attacks. And Deku's scared, and Zoro's like, don't worry, kid, I got it. And he's like, are you sure? He's like, yes. Right, and then he tells him his name. My name's Zoro. Right, and he's like, Ronor, what? And boom, the bear's down. Deku's in shock that he just took him down in that amount of time. And when Zoro looked up, he saw this boy in shock. He's like, oh, so since you're gonna start living with me, I guess I should say this now. He's like, huh? Say what? You're gonna have to start training with me. You're gonna learn my 3-sword style. Like, but what's... I don't know how to use swords. I don't even have a sword. He's like, don't worry about it. I have a few spare. Right, he's like, oh, okay. Right, because he still has a little baby form. of Deku. So he's like, oh, okay. And let's say 3 years later, no, 4 years later, he's 8 now. He's 8, and Deku knows how to use 3 swords. He doesn't know how to, he hasn't mastered it fully, but he's mastered 1 sword and 2 swords. Now he's just mastering 3. And Deku knows a lot. He's gone to school because Zoro made some money by capturing villains that ran into the forest. Zoro is kind of like a hero. They call him the sword hero. Right? And yeah, they call him the sword hero. And Deku learns a weird trick that Zoro had never learned. That when he's using 3 swords, you could kind of see his bones for some reason. Zoro just thinks something's weird about that, but he doesn't know for sure. And then Zoro teaches him hockey for swords. And it took Deku another 2 years. So now he's 10 and he mastered 3 swords, but has not mastered hockey with them yet. And at the age of 10, he goes back to his old school. And Deku is more built. He looks like Zoro. I'll show you what he looks like. Give me a second. Deku has green hair, but he trimmed it pretty much. Pretty much his hair looks like Zoro's, right? But just his regular color, and he's as tall as Zoro. So he's pretty tall, right? He goes back, and Bakugo instantly tries to bully him. But when Bakugo tried to use the explosion, Deku just moved out of his way. He said, move it. Alright, because he forgot about him. He's like, who the hell are you, kid? You can't tell me what to do. And then he just looks at him, and he just got shook. Because it's like he had a bloodthirst. Right? Just bloodthirst. And Bakugo backed off. And after that, he goes home. He starts heading to the forest. And Ingo sees him. She says, you're still alive? And Deku is like, what did you say, lady? Because he forgot about his mother. And she says, you're still alive, but I left you for dead. And he's like, oh, so you left me. Thanks a lot. Right? And he's like, I don't care. I found someone that... Right, I found someone. She's like, really? Who is it? I'm like, there's no one for you. He's like, doesn't matter. Right? And then he walks off to the forest. And he heads to the forest. Bakugo is following him. Bakugo saw him with this guy for some reason. And boom. He knew that he followed, so Deku pulled out his swords and got all 3 and got it to his neck and said, what do you want, Bakugo? And he says, nothing. Let me go. He's like, go then. Right? They leave. Bakugo leaves, and 5 years later, he's mastered it now, and Zoro's just working out with him. He's like, okay, last day of your school. Good luck, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, thanks, Zoro. And during that, he says, I know you all want to be heroes, and everyone knows that he's pretty strong. Right? So yeah. And sorry. during that, they knew that yeah, like they just knew that Deku was very strong, so they thought that he would just be a hero because it's Deku, right? And when they said Bakugo, everyone's like, yeah, it's pretty usual. Deku, and they're like, yeah, okay, right? And those were the only two. And Bakugo's like, oh, he's not gonna make it. It's Deku. Everyone's like, oh god, he's being cocky again, isn't he? And everyone's like, yep, there he is. Everyone's like, and he says, what did you say, you damn bastards? And everyone's like, nothing, Bakugo, right? Because they have more confidence, because they know who's superior in that class. Right? They know who's superior. And it's Deku. By a lot. And the teacher's like, so everyone else wants to go to this other school, so on, so on. Right? And the day ends, he's like, Deku, and he says, what do you want, Bakugo? And he says, I want to fight you. The teacher already let me. The teacher gave me permission. He's like, oh, okay. I'll fight you later, but I gotta do stuff. He's like, no, right here, right now. He's like, Deku's like, fine. And Deku puts on a bandana and he always has his 3 swords. He got permission to always have them on him. And Deku knows his powers. He knows how much force it is to kill someone and how much it is to knock them out or stuff like that, right? And he's safe. He's like, let's say he pulls out 1 sword and Buck is like, oh, why aren't you using all 3? He's like, you're not worth my time. I could honestly beat you without my swords, but if you want to fight, you could get one. He pulls out 1 sword and covers it with hockey. He's like, that's gonna do anything. Bakugo goes on for a full-on attack, and Deku just moves and hits him in the back of the head with the end of the sword, the hilt of the sword, right? And he's like, Bakugo keeps going after him. He's like, you're not gonna win, you damn nerd. How dare you think you're gonna win? You're a loser. You're never gonna win. Right? And he's like, you're so annoying. And then he pulls out all 3 swords, and Bakugo's like, yes, now you're all mad. You're not gonna win because how furious. Boom, in an instant, he just says, 1 million pound phoenix. But Zoro's there watching him. He's like, no. And blocks that. He says, no. He's like, fine. And walks off with Zoro. Because the day ended. School ended for them. And everyone's like, who was that? Right? They didn't know who that was. And they were just... He's like, really, kid? What was up with that? He's like, he just got me annoyed. He's like, yeah, I could tell. Still, no. Right? It's like, whatever. Right? He's like, what was that, kid? He's like, nothing. You old fart. He's like, oh, you want to say that again to my face? And they're having an argument in front of everyone. And some people are laughing about it. They're like, look at those guys. Right? And Deku's like, what was that? You want to say that again? Right? And so did him. He's like, what? Sorry, I didn't hear you either. And they both looked at him. Right? And let's say that they both went under the bridge that day. The sludge villain's like, I'm going to kill you, the old guy, and then I'm going to take over the kid's body. Right? And then they both pull out their 3 swords, so it's pretty much like a 6 sword style. They whip him. They pretty much take him out real quick. Right? And because the hockey on their swords nullifies their quirks. So, and All Might comes up. He's like, hello, whoa. And then he sees Zoro. He's like, oh, hey, Zoro. He's like, oh, All Might, what's up? Right? Like, because Zoro is a hero. Like, he's like the number 5 hero. Oh, and I'm already gonna make the ship. It's gonna be Mirko. Okay. You'll see why, because it's going to be a college, and Mirko just finished Hero College, okay? So, yeah. If I'm quiet during a little bit of this, I am playing Call of Duty Warzone. So, yeah. So, yeah, that happened. And what the hell? And he's like, oh, who's this young boy? He says, he's pretty much my, he's trying to think of the word, and I don't know the word because I forgot about it. He's pretty much training under me, right? He's like, oh, I see. He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I see. He's like, oh, is he gonna go to UA? He's like, yeah, probably in the UA college. He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, probably, why not? You know? And I'm like, okay, well, I gotta get going. I gotta get this guy to go. You know, he's like, yeah, go ahead, I'll talk to you later. Right? And they both walk off. And Deku's like, huh, that's the #1 hero, right? He's like, yeah, me and him are pretty even. They think, but they haven't seen my full potential, you know that. And he's like, yeah, I know, I fought against it. You're a jerk at it, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, what was that, kid? I didn't hear you fully. He's like, nothing, Zoro. Right, with his hands behind it. He had his hands behind his head and walking. Right. And during that, say some random guy with with his quirk where he could produce swords out of anywhere he wants, comes out of nowhere and says, give me your money. Zoro looks at him. He's like, okay, all yours, kid. He's like, really? He's like, yeah. I don't want to waste my time with this thing. Waste my time with them. He's like, oh, so I have to deal with it? He's like, is there a problem with it? He's like, no, just really. He's like, yeah, go out. He's like, so can I go all out with it? He's like, no, that's not what I said. He's like, are you serious? He's like, yes, just go normally, would you? We don't need a kid dying every day. He's like, but what? It's like, nothing. He goes up, he says, do you really want to do this? You got 2 seconds before I clap you. He's like, oh, sure, a little kid's gonna clap me. Deku heard that, he went, oh, a little kid, right? And he went at it, he just hit him twice, boom, he's knocked out. He's like, little kid in my ass, motherfucker, right? And then he's like, okay, that's enough, let's go. And let's say 3 years later, right, it's time that they could go to college, right? They're in college. Let's say Deku is getting ready for the college. The college and stuff, right? And he's getting ready for the college, and he meets accidentally bumped into Mirko on accident. He's like, oh, sorry, ma'am. She's like, oh, it's okay. Just watch out where you're going, right? And he's like, yeah, sure. She's like, hey, that's kind of rude. He's like, yeah, just kind of doing stuff, right? And she's like, well, so what you doing? He's like, oh, well, I was just going on my 10-kilometer run for UA. He's like, oh, I just finished at college. Really? And he's like, yeah. They start talking, and she's like, here's my number if you want to hang out anytime. He's like, oh, okay, nice, right? And Deku's like, nice lady, I guess, right? And he's like, nice lady, nice, right? Hugh goes home, and it's the entrance exam, right? Let's say Mirko is the number 10 hero. No, she's the number 4. Yeah, number 4 hero. And Zoro's like, huh, that bunny girl. She just started and got ahead of me somehow. Not bad for a kid. Right, and Deku's like, oh, you're talking about that hero Miracle, right? I bumped into her, actually. It's like, oh, really? And she's like, yeah. Nice lady. Give me her number. Right? And he's like, ooh, nice. When are you gonna call her? He's like, yeah, don't really know. She just said if you want to hang out, so whenever I'm bored, I guess. He's like, yeah, smart, I guess. He's like, okay, let's get to training. And they're just lifting 1 million pound weights, right? And let's say that, and okay, let's say the next day was the actual test, right? Deku's there, Zoro walks with him. He's like, okay, I gotta go with these guys. Good luck. Don't be a distraction or a nuisance. He's like, yeah. Everyone sees him talking to Zoro. They're like, oh, that's the number 5 hero. What is he talking to that kid for? Right? He's like, yeah, yes. And Deku accidentally called him Granddad. He's like, yeah, Granddad. Then he covers his mouth. He's like, oh, crap, I do not want to call him that yet. It's like, and Zoro's like, my heart. Like, no, don't take that. Because Zoro's he likes Deku a lot. He thinks of him as his grandson, not like his son figure or anything. He just thinks of him as a grandson. He's like, no, don't take it like that, you old man. He's like, call me whatever you want. You call me Granddad. That's all I need in life. He's like, no, don't. Right? And he starts blushing. The girls see him. They start nose bleeding. Like, holy crap, he's hot. Right? Because he's literally Zoro pretty much. Muscular, tall, nice guy, you know? And he's really smart. Because let's say that... Nah, actually, Zoro is not with anyone. Right? And Bakugo sees him. He's like, oh, is that his number 5 hero? Right? He's like, and then he sees Deku. He's like, yeah, nerd. And he's like, oh. And he's like, what did he call this? He's like, what did he call him? He's like, oh, I called him a nerd because that's what he is. He's like, oh, not really. He could probably whoop you any day. Right? And he's saying this out loud so people hear him. He's like, and everyone's like, is the hero actually saying that about this kid? Right? And they're like, holy crap, the hero's actually saying that about the kid. Right? And the next day, let's say, no, they get in and he sits down. He already knows because Zoro told him everything about it because let's say that they lived in a natural house and had internet and stuff in the forest, and they got an email. He's like, okay, so this is what's gonna happen. 0 Pointer barely comes out. So with your skill, they're probably gonna send out 5, maybe, who knows? Right? And he's like, oh, okay, I guess. He's like, yeah, okay. Like, okay, anyways. Right, so he's just on his phone, doing whatever, scrolling through stuff. Right? And Deku has a scar in his eye, so he always keeps his eye down. Or he always just has his eye closed in the eye. That's his right eye, let's say, okay? And he knows observation on Ki, let's say, okay? Because Zoro knows that in the regular animes. So does Sanji, Usopp, and pretty much everyone except for Nami and Chopper, Brox, and Frankie, pretty much. So yeah, that happens, right? And let's say during President Mike's talking, and Ida sees him. He's like, sir, what's about this fourth robot in you? Could you get off your phone? You're distracting me. He's like, I'm sitting above you. My volume is down. I have not made a sound. I haven't even had a call, and I'm distracting you. How does that work? Please, God, tell me how that works. I would love to know how that works. Right. And like he's saying this out loud so people can hear him. People are laughing at Ida like right. And he's like and Mike's like, yeah, thank you, kid. And I was gonna get to that part, but we barely signed it out. And like, so yeah, right. He says, yeah. Right. He finishes it, and he goes to ground A, and he's just getting ready. He's just jumping up and down and stuff. He's just getting ready. He sees Ochako. He doesn't really go. He just says, "Kid, stop being all worried about it, or you can't be really a good hero if you're always worried about stuff." People hear that and they're like, "Oh, what a douchebag he is," right? Let's say Mina was there also. He's like, she's kind of like, kind of a jerk, but still hot or still cute, you know. And when Mike was about to say go, Deku just blitzed. He didn't care. He just dipped. And everyone's like, what is he doing? Like, there's barely, like, the door cracked a little, right? And he's already in there. And the teachers were caught off guard by that because they thought that he was just going to go. So I was like, huh, that's the boy. That boy, right? And everyone's like, you know him? He's like, yeah, that's my grandson, right? And this is Mirko is there, and she's like, that's your grandson? Oh god, right? Because she likes Deku. She's like, oh god, no. She's like, what's wrong, Mirko? You seem flustered a little, don't you? And she's like, no, right? Looks away and goes back to looking at the screen. He's like, I know what's going on. He's like, I know you. He's like, I know you have his number, right? And she blushes by that. She's like, right? And he's like, I don't care. Treat him well, would you? She's like, shut up. I'm not even dating or anything. And everyone's just listening to this. And this is very, he's like, weird. Right? Because she's going to be a teacher there. Or like an assistant teacher for Asawa. She just started. Right? So yeah. And let's say Zoro's like, Deku says, it doesn't matter. There's no go in a battle, so I don't know why you're all taking so long. Right? And he's like, oh. Like, Zoro shed a tear. He's like, oh. He said what I told him to say. Right? Everyone's like, oh my god. He's so stupid, right? Everyone said this out loud. He's like, what was that? And Endeavor's like, we said that you're stupid. Why? And then he's like, you know why, Endeavor. I could whoop you any day. Right? He's like, no, you can't. That's why you're the number, 5 hero? Like, and that's why you're number 2 right behind someone. He's like, oh, you can't be talking. You know I'm better than you anyways. Right? And he's like, no, you're not. That's why I'm number 2. And that's why you stay at number 5. It's like, if I went against you in public, I would disgrace your family. Right? He's like, I would disgrace you. And Nez is like, hey, okay, knock it off, you guys. Just pay attention. See what we're doing. And they see that all the 3-pointers and 2-pointers are dead. Only what's left is 1-pointers. So he said, y'all could have them. I gotta leave some for you guys. Then he screams, yo, Granddad. And Zoro's like, because Zoro, like, they're in a building that they could see. And he's like, he breaks the window. He's like, yo, what's up? And he said, send in more robots. I killed all 3 and 2s. He's like, yeah, I got it. Right, and everyone's like, oh my god, what the heck? Right, they're all shocked by this. They're like, he could give orders like that? He's like, but, and then he says, don't give me orders though. He's like, yeah, I got it, Granddad. Right, he's like, yeah, I gotcha. And they send, let's say, 15,000. I have to make this number up because he's super OP. 15,000 robots, 2 and 3. he takes a little bit more time. He's like, oh, okay, a lot more than I expected, but okay. Right, and let's say ground 1 and B were combined, so like some of the robots had to come over there to go fight, and like say Bakugo is fighting one, and he's like, and then it ran off to go fight Deku. He's like, what the heck? No, that nerd shouldn't be fighting him. That nerd's not even strong. Blah blah blah. Right, and he's like, he doesn't, and he's like, he follows and sees Deku just fighting numerous of them. He's like, hi, you're gonna need help, aren't you? He's like, oh no, it's pretty easy. I just need to do. And then he just slashes. He just slices once and boom. Boom. He just kills 10. He destroys 10 of them. Right, he destroys 10 of them. And he's like, he's just shocked by this. He's like, what the heck? Right, and then he's like, okay, we should probably send out a 0-pointer for him, huh? And he's like, yeah, probably. And everyone's like, yes. Mirko's like, definitely send out 3 or something, right? And she just wants to see how strong he is, because she defeated 3 on her own, but it took a little bit more time, so she wants to see how long it'll take and how strong he is, right? He's like, oh, okay, so you want to see my grandson at work? Yeah, I'll see. You want to see? He's like, yeah. He's like, and then he sends in 10, let's say. He sends in 10 0-pointers. He sends in 10 0-pointers. And then he's like, that's too much, isn't it? It's like, no, I think it's enough about, like, my strength, right? And they're like, your strength? What do you mean your strength? Right? And boom. He's like, oh, finally, you're sending out these guys. I was waiting. He's like, I was waiting for you to send them out. God, it took you long enough. I was getting bored here. Right? He finishes them up. He takes out one with one swipe. And then, let's say 3 armored ones. Remember, like I said during the Titan Shifter, 3 armored 0-pointers come out. You're like, are you sure these guys aren't worth points? Right? Because he's pretty much saving people that are super close. Because these guys just jumped out of nowhere, pretty much, let's say. Right? These guys just came out of nowhere. He's like, well, you get points if you kill and stuff, and you rescue people. It's like, oh, so I should have more points than the #1 hero in this thing. He's like, yeah, you probably. He's like, oh, you already passed that by a while, by a very long shot. And then they look. Everyone's like, wait, really? They look at his score and they just see billions, right? It's mad. He's like, really? This kid's power is stronger than his abilities? And he's like, ah. Then Deku, then he just slams, let's say, a button that wasn't a 0-pointer, but something else. It was some big robot. He didn't know what it was at all. All Might didn't even know what it was. He thought it was more 0-pointers. It was like 0-pointers, but it was like 300 0-pointers, but combined together. And it has armor too, so it's tougher. It's like, and let's say Deku finished all those 10. He's like, huh, you never told me about this. And he's like, I didn't even know this was a thing. Let's see what you could do with it. He's like, huh, giving me playtime with my food? Fine, I guess. Right, he's like, don't be such a cocky little person about it. Like, I'm not. Right, grinning about it. Happy that he got another challenge. Right. Right, and it's a good battle against them. Right, because the robot could attack also. Like, it's a pretty good sized robot, and it's just attacking each other. Like they're throwing blows, and all my thinks, holy crap, this kid is actually strong, right? He's kind of scared about him, because his successor was Todoroki. Okay, his successor was Todoroki, let's say, and let's say Todoroki is right there, and he's like, can this power that All Might gave me beat him? Right? Because he's contemplating, like, what this power could still do. Like, he could use, let's say, 50%. 50%, right? Damn. And that's it. He could use 50% of it so far for Todoroki. And Deku's like, he gets done with it. He stretches his back. He's like, oh, that hurts. Right? Because let's say he got hit like 50 times. He's like, oh. And he's just like stretching. He's like, then Mike says, time's up. Right? And everyone's in shock. They're like, holy crap. Right? They're all out of breath. Deku's out of breath. He's like, I'm out of breath and all. But Jesus. Oh, my back hurts. Right? He's like, really? Isn't that? He's like, really? They're all like, really? He's like, yeah, why? Right? Because he's all confused. He's like, I don't know what I did wrong. And they're like, what you did was pretty impressive, you know. He's like, oh, really? Right? Like, breathing hard. He's like, thank you. I try my hardest. Right? Because he's smiling. The girls are like freaking out about this. They're like, holy crap, he's adorable. Mirko's blushing hard. Like, hard. And then he passes out. The cover girl's like, I got him. Pretty much. And yeah. Let's say that he's like, he's already getting in. Like, everyone's just saying he's in. And he's like, oh, well, I knew that. I already gave him a recommendation. I never told him. He's like, they're like, you never told him that you gave him a recommendation? So he did this for no reason? He's like, yeah. And they're like, why? And they're like, well, I wanted to see what he could fully do. And now I can see what he could fully do. But I think he could do even more. Like, even more. You're talking out of your ass. Right? He's like, am I though? Like, then he looks at the screen and then they just see him standing up, jumping up and down. He has stamina again. He's like, yeah, he gets stamina pretty quick. He's not slow. And they're like, and everyone's shocked because they just thought he just passed out. Right? They just thought that he just passed out. And the girls go like, are you okay, sweetheart? He's like, yes, recovery. He's like, yeah, you know I am. You know who I am. She's like, yeah, I know. I gotta be all cocky about it. He's like, yeah, okay, Granny. She's like, don't call me Granny or I'm gonna slap you. He's like, please. He's like, are you though? And then she just slaps him, and he's like, okay, so you were. And then he just wipes. He's like, so can you heal that now? She says, nope, your fault. He's like, come on. Right. And she's like, your fault. You should have not done it. He's like, but. She's like, but what? And then he just said, nothing. Right. All sad. He's like, nothing. He's all fussy about it and stuff. So yeah. He's all fussy about it. And let's say it ends. Todoroki goes up to him. He's like, are you this strong? He's like, oh, well, I was trained by someone. And he's like, oh, wow. The person is also that strong. And then Zoro comes up. He's like, hey, Deku, good job. I saw you. Like, yeah, I know, I had to yell at you. Right? And he's like, yeah. You ready to go home? He's like, yeah. And Todoroki knows who he is also. He's like, wait, that's who, I'm gonna guess that's who trained you? He's like, yeah. Why? He's like, well, I'm stronger than you. He's like, is that so? He's like, yeah. And then, right? Like, he's all confident, right? And he's like, sure, whatever, kid. And walks off. And let's say he walks into a ramen store, and let's say that a lot of the pro heroes are there, and like they rented it out. Jackie's like, "Oh, are you serious? Just wanted some ramen, right?" And then he still walks in. All the heroes see him, and they're like, "We reserved the place." He's like, "Yeah," and he orders ramen. And like the chefs are like, He's like, "Yes," and they're like, "Okay." They make it. It's like, "Okay, thanks. I'm gonna head out." He pays. He says, "Yeah, we could keep the change. I don't really need it." And walks out. Everyone's like, "What the fuck did just happen?" Right? They were just shocked that the kid just not listened to them. Right? Mirko's laughing about it. Zoro's laughing about it because he had to go there. He's like, "Did you teach him all your smirkiness?" And Zoro's like, yes, I did. How dare you judge me? He's like, "Are you judging me?" He's like, they all said, "No, Zoro, we're not judging you." It's like, good. Now let's eat and talk about the kids' scores. Right? And they said, well, the recommendations were Todoroki, Momo, Deku, and Ida. So they're always going in. And I'm going to add some other anime characters if that's okay. Until you guys tell me, okay? If I should add, like, I'm going to say the limit for other anime characters is 3. Cannot be Goku, Naruto, or Luffy. Or, like, any stuff like that, okay? Okay. So yeah. And, wait, hold on, where was I? And, yeah. And they're like, okay, so, now let's talk about this kid named Bakugo. Smirky, and he has power, though. Right, they're talking about how, well, I guess he could be a hero, but he's more of a offensive instead of and how his attitude is, right? They're talking about it, they're like, I guess. They submit him. Then they talk about Totoro. He's like, okay, Todoroki is third, pass on. Ochako, they're talking about, and he's like, well, we did get saving points, so she could be a good hero. She would just need to train on offensive more, right? And he's like, yeah. And I don't think I said Ida for a recommendation. If I did, I'm gonna say he didn't. They're like, Ida, he's smart and all, right? He's smart. He has a good offensive, but he is also cocky, right? And more demanding. Like, they're just talking about the kids. And let's say that Harigiri and Mineta didn't. They're like, Harigiri, yeah, sure. He's like, because they saw. Let's say that they saw some robot's power down, and they're like, oh, so probably Harigiri, because she said Cork invisible, pretty much. Mineta is like also helped her. Let's just say Mineta was also with her, so she could stop and get him. So Mineta was there also. He's like, okay, well, it's pretty much the same class and everything. Unless you guys want me to add more people, like some from animes, please tell me. Except for the ones I said. So yeah. And pretty much. Damn, I should have a script with this. Fuck. Let's say Zoro heads home. Deku's asleep. He's just asleep on the couch with a blanket and a pillow. He had TV. Zoro's like, turns off the TV. He's like, kid, I don't know what I'm gonna do with you. And let's say a week passes. First day of school. No, he gets the letter. And he's like, oh, nice. So his first day of school starts in a week now. Like, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. I'll probably be one of your teachers, Maybe, I don't know. And he's like, oh. Deku's like, oh, okay. And, yeah. A week later, first day of school. He goes into class. He's the first one, except, but let's say Kirishima was there first. He's like, oh, hello, right? And he's like, yo, what's up? And let's just say nothing, and Deku just puts in AirPods, let's say, and just starts listening to music. Kirishima's like, okay, okay. And then he just sits. Let's say Mina walks in. She says hi to Kirishima and stuff. Then she sees Zoro, and then she walked up to him and she said, hello. And he just nodded his head. He said, what's up? Right? And she's like, so, what's your quirk? He says, I don't got one. And Kirishima and Mina were shocked, right? The heroes already knew, but they were shocked about that too. And they're like, oh no, you're lying, aren't you? And he's like, no, you could even look at my profile as the teacher when he gets in here, right? Let's say they wait like another, like people start coming in, and all this spreads quickly. Like class 1B hears about this, right? And they're shocked about it also. Monama's like, oh, a quirkless kid, really? And Bakugo here says he's like, oh yeah, I know he's quirkless. I don't even know how he got in here, right? He's like, probably because he just punched a 0-pointer and he hurt his finger, so they felt bad, probably, right? He's just talking smack. Kirishima is like, calm down, dude. He just has strength. You know that. You saw him, right? Because pretty much everyone was combined into a thing, so they had a lot of robot parts and stuff. So yeah, then everyone comes in. Deku did save Uraraka pretty much. He saved pretty much the whole class. Right? Miracle Zawa comes in, then Miracle comes in. Right? And let's say Zoro also comes in. He's like, oh, told you I would be in one of your classes or something. Right? He's like, yeah, I see. And then he says, oh, hey Miracle. Right? He's like, oh. And she just says, oh, hey Deku. And then he says, oh, Shota, what's up? Oh, and like Shoto knows Deku pretty well because Shoto is a really good friend to Zoro. He's like, oh, hey Deku. He's like, oh, you got it in too? He's like, yeah, I got a recommendation, I guess. The guy over there, he pointed at Zoro, didn't tell me, and also I didn't have to do that test. Right? He's like, yeah, I know, he told us during that thing. So then he just says, go put on your uniforms. He's like, and then he notices Deku, why aren't you wearing your uniform? And Zoro says, I got permission for him to not wear that stuff. He's like, oh, okay. Right, and Deku didn't really care about the gym, so he just jumped out the window. Miracle just joined him. Let's say all three teachers and Deku just jumped out the window. Everyone got in. Now let's say, actually I take that back. The teachers just walked out, and all the boys, Deku just went down there, because why not? Because he wanted to see what the locker room was going to be like. He was right next to the hole in the wall, if you know what I'm talking about, that locker, and he just takes off his shirt to switch it out, and the boys just see he has a humongous scar, and he just has scars on his back and stuff everywhere, and the boys are pretty loud about it, and the girl, let's say one of the girls quickly put like something through there to see what it was, and they just saw him muscular, shirtless, and scars. Zero just tells them that, and all the girls like had a little nosebleed about it, right? Because they all got a turn to look through it. Because let's say Moma had like made a telescope and stuff. Then let's say Mineta didn't see them looking at Deku, but he found the hole, and he's like, guys, I found a hole, and everyone stopped. Deku finished up his shirt, and he said, nope, we're not doing that now. He's like, but we could see ladies. Right? And he's like, we can see some ladies. Oh, yeah. Right? And then he just pulled out a sword, Hockey's and he's like, you sure you want to keep doing that? Right? And he says, no, sir. Because now Mineta is scared. He's like, good. And then he walks out. And then everyone else pretty much walks out behind him. And Shoto's like, since you had the highest score in history of UA, you go first, right? And everyone's like, high score, but wasn't All Might? And he's like, yeah, but he broke All Might pretty badly. And he's like, throw the ball. He's like, use your strength. Yeah, you already know. Right, and Mirko doesn't know. He's like, what do you mean? You mean use his quirk? She said, and then Shoto and Zoro says he doesn't got one. And then when he threw it, it was like this machine broke. It didn't say what it was. Right? And yeah. Hold up, give me a sec. There we go. Right. Otaku got Infinity still though. No, she got second. Because the machine didn't break, it just said Infinity. The machine broke first, so Deku. Right, he's like, okay. So yeah. That happened. Pretty much Deku got first place and everything. Right? No one got expelled because he was bluffing. Mirko thought that Mineta should have got expelled, but he's like, I don't even care right now. Let's say after school, because no, they went to the All Might class, and like pretty much the assistant teachers had to keep following them, right? And he's like hero costumes and stuff, and this is what Deku's hero costume is gonna look like. Give me a second. Okay, we're back. Pretty much his costume's gonna look like this. Or he just goes like this out there, and everyone's like, really? And All Might's like, oh, is that your costume? It's like, sure. Right, and let's just say Shoto was there. This is what Zoro and Shoto are doing. They're just sleeping. They don't care. They're just sleeping. Miracles don't awake. And, yeah. And they're going together, and let's say since he had the highest score, they all have to go against him. Right. And he's like, oh, are you sure? And then he wakes up Zoro. Zoro uses a sword at him. He's like, why did you wake me up? He's like, well. And he says, well, what? He's like, geez, you're scary. And he's like, Jesus Christ, I'm scared. He's like, holy shoot, I'm scared. I should have not done that. Right? And he's like, well, how much strength did I use against the whole class? And he's like, oh, just don't kill them. Just knock them out, pretty much. Just knock them out, okay? Okay, this is what his costume's gonna look like. He just comes out like this. He'll go shirtless when he's going actual serious. It's like, okay, how many swords do I use? It's like, just use 2. You don't need to hurt them. He just says, no, you just use 1. And then Bakugo says, no, use all 3. Don't listen to him. You're going to use all 3 against me. And he's like, should I, though? I don't really think it's necessary for me to use all 3 on you. He's like, oh, what was that? Right, because Bakugo's getting all heated and stuff. Deku doesn't care, pretty much. And, yeah. And let's say that All Might's like, okay, let's begin. Deku, you're gonna be the villain. Everyone else is the hero, right? He's like, holy. Then Deku's like, should they be the villain and I should be the hero? And he's like, no, you'd be too overpowered for a hero, right? And that's what he said. And then he said, well, if I'm just a hero, does that mean I'm overpowered villain? And he's like, true, I guess. He's like, no, you're just a strong villain that needed people because you had hostages, let's say, okay, and they just stayed. He's like, okay, good story, I guess. And let's say Class 1B was also there because it's a college, and you're like, okay, so all of Class 1B and 1A is just about to fight Deku. Deku's like, okay. And it's about like 50 kids, 50 of them, right? And Deku's like, okay, I'm gonna place the bomb here and just wait. None of pretty much everyone except for Class 1A knows that. So Class 1A and all the teachers know that Deku is quirkless, but they do not know that. But Class 1B does not know that. So yeah, Monoma says, "I'm gonna steal his quirk." Give me a second, real quick. Okay, I'm back. So Monoma's like, "I'm gonna steal his quirk." And then they tell him, and he's like, "Well, okay." And then let's say Monoma's has built some muscle, but not that much. He's like, "Okay, I guess." Well, he's not that strong. Then they tell him that the machine broke. He's like, "Well, who cares, right?" He doesn't care. He's like, I don't care. I can still beat him, right? Bakugo is like, "Yeah, we could beat him." It's literally 50 kids against one. And they are not thinking about, well, the entrance exam at all. They're not thinking about it. And let's say Deku set up 20 traps, or he just set up some traps to kind of slow him down from the bomb. See if he could just use the traps to win. And, oh, wait, actually, no. The ship's gonna be Nejire. So let's say so everything I pretty much said with Nejire, or with Mirko, it's gonna happen with Nejire. So Mirko's not there. Nejire is a student, okay? Ah, God. Nejire is the student, okay? I'm gonna feel bad for everyone that's just started watching this video. You know what, screw it. Nope, never mind. Nejire is not the ship. Mirko's still the ship. Okay. Anyways, yeah. Anyways. So yeah. And they're like, so Monoma gets trapped, they get him out. Like, people start getting trapped, and it just takes them 5 minutes to catch up to Deku. And let's say it's like a 15 minutes, 50-minute, and they're like, he's like, "Really? That only took you 5 minutes, right?" It's like, I guess I gotta fight you guys for about 45 minutes, or just knock you out here now, right? And everyone's like, he's getting too cocky. And let's say all of the hardening people that have hardening abilities, so Kirishima, Tetsu, and let's say Tokiyomi knows how to cover his body, right? They all go at him, and Deku is like, okay. He pulls out one sword, armors it, and slashes at them. It hits them pretty hard, but they still are up. They're still at him. Let's say everyone that has an offensive goes at him. Right, he's fighting, he's dodging. He even got hit once, and he's like, okay, that's enough. Then he pulls out all three and knocks them all out. He knocks out all the Rangers, his middle range, and then he leaves Todoroki, Bakugo, Monoma, Ida, Kirishima, Tetsu. Yeah. And, like, he's fighting Bakugo, and then he knocks out Bakugo. Todoroki's fighting him, knocks out Todoroki. Monoma fights him, he knocks out everyone. And it took about 20 minutes, so they're like, okay, the winner is Deku. Right. And boom. That was the day. Let's say the bell rang. They got dressed. Everyone's kind of hurt. He's like, "Are you all okay? Sorry, I should not have gone that hard." But he's apologizing. The girls are like, "It's okay." The boys are like, Kirishima, and some of them are like, "Yeah, it's okay." And then the other boys are just mean mugging him. And yeah, that's where I'm going to end it. Actually, let's just see if I could get an hour in. Just need one more minute. So yeah, let's just say they walked home. Zoro's like, "Good job, kid. Miyako's coming over for dinner tonight." And he's like, "Oh, okay." Right. And he gets ready and stuff. He sets up the table. And he's like, "Are we eating outside or inside?" He's like, "Outside by the pond." They eat outside by the pond. Like, they're getting stuff ready. And say Mirko brought Azawa over also. They're just all eating. And let's say that Deku made ramen for them. Right, because Zoro's like, I don't want to cook tonight. And Deku's like, I got you. He just cooks some ramen with eggs in it. It's like, I think you could. He's like, yeah, we had guests over. I should have just cooked anyways. He's like, what was that? He's like, nothing, Zoro. He says, nothing, Gramps. And they just start eating.
And yeah, that's where I'm gonna end it off, guys. Peace out and have a wonderful day. Hey, we can go to 1 hour. Let's go. But yeah, have a good day. Bye.